Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that's, well, fundamental to all of our lives, but it's often surrounded by a whole lot of complexity. We're talking about reproductive health, and we're going to break it all down nice and simple.
You know, it's a phrase we hear all the time, right? But what are we actually talking about when we say it? It's so much more than just, not being sick. It's a huge concept that really touches on the physical, the emotional, and even the social fabric of our lives. So let's get the official take. The World Health Organization calls it a state of total well-being. Now, just think about that for a second. Total well-being. It's not just about all the physical parts working right. It's about feeling emotionally secure, it's about having respectful relationships, and it's about having the freedom to make your own informed choices. It's a really complete, holistic view of health.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with a really big picture, the global population. Then we'll zoom right in on contraception methods, tackle some of the tougher decisions people have to face, and finally, we'll look at the amazing science of overcoming infertility.
All right, let's kick things off with that global context. You see, understanding these huge population trends is absolutely key to understanding why reproductive health became such a major focus for countries all around the world.
And this is where the story gets pretty dramatic. Just look at these numbers. In a single century, from 1900 to 2000, the world's population tripled. I mean, that's not just growth. That is a population explosion on a scale that humanity had literally never seen before.
So why did this happen? Well, it wasn't a mystery. It was actually a direct result of incredible progress. We had better healthcare, better sanitation, better living conditions. It all meant people were living longer. And crucially, more babies and mothers were surviving childbirth. Now, these are all fantastic achievements, but they brought a completely new set of challenges.
Which leads to a really critical question for governments everywhere. What do you do about this? How do you manage such rapid growth? It puts a massive strain on everything. Food, housing, jobs, you name it. And it turns out the most effective approach is to empower people with the knowledge and the tools to plan their own families. And that brings us perfectly to the next piece of the puzzle, the development of a whole toolkit that gives individuals real control over their reproductive lives. This is where contraception comes into the picture.
So today, there are a ton of different options out there, and they can all be grouped into these main categories you see here. Each one works a little differently, and what's ideal really varies from person to person. So let's take a quick look at some of the most common ones. First up, barrier methods. And they do exactly what the name suggests. They create a physical wall. The male condom, which you see here, is one of the most popular, for a really good reason. It doesn't just prevent pregnancy, it also gives crucial protection against sexually transmitted infections, or STIs. Next up, we have IUDs. These are tiny little devices, like the copper T right here, that get inserted into the uterus by a doctor or nurse. The great thing about them is that they're super effective, they're long-lasting, and they're really ideal for people who want to delay having a baby or just space their kids out. Then, of course, you've got hormonal methods like the pill. These are incredibly common all over the world. They typically work by using hormones to prevent ovulation. So basically, they tell the ovaries to just not release an egg in the first place.
Okay, but what about people who are absolutely sure they don't want any more children? Well, that's where surgical methods come in. These offer a permanent solution. For men, it's called a vasectomy, and for women, it's a tubectomy. Both of them work by essentially blocking the path that the sperm or the eggs travel on. And this diagram gives you a really clear look at how a tubectomy works. You can see the fallopian tubes, those are the pathways for the egg, are cut and tied off. It's a simple surgical step that effectively prevents the egg and sperm from ever getting a chance to meet. Of course, reproductive health isn't just about planning. It's also about how we navigate some of the most difficult and complex situations, and that includes dealing with sexually transmitted infections and making really tough decisions about terminating a pregnancy. Now, STIs are a major public health issue, and this chart highlights something absolutely critical. Some infections, like gonorrhea and syphilis, are totally curable if you catch them early, but others, like hepatitis B and HIV, are not. And that's exactly why prevention and safe practices are just so important. So, let's talk about medical termination of pregnancy, or MTP. The really crucial thing to understand here is that in many places, like India since 1971, it's a legal and regulated medical procedure. It exists to provide a safe option for people in cases of unwanted pregnancies or when continuing a pregnancy poses a serious risk to the health of the mother or the child. And safety is everything, which is why it's considered safest during the first 12 weeks. And for our final section, let's kind of flip the script. Because for a huge number of couples, the challenge isn't preventing a pregnancy, but achieving one. Welcome to the world of infertility. So what is infertility exactly? Well, it's defined as the inability to have a child despite trying. And as you can see, the causes can be incredibly wide-ranging: physical, genetic, even psychological. And it's also really important to remember that the issue can come from the male partner, the female partner, or sometimes a combination of both. But here's the amazing parts. For couples who are facing this challenge, modern medicine has some incredible answers through what are called assisted reproductive technologies, or ART. The most famous one is IVF, what people used to call the test-tube-baby process. It's this precise three-step procedure where fertilization actually happens outside the body, in a lab, and then the tiny embryo is placed back in the uterus to grow. It's just incredible. You know, for all the mind-blowing science we've just talked about, our source material leaves us with a really powerful and very human reminder. It points out that legal adoption is one of the best methods for couples looking for parenthood. And that's a pretty profound thought to end on, that building a family is ultimately about love and care, and there are so many different beautiful ways to achieve that dream.